Another thing that's very important for people with ADHD is their working memory. If you ask folks who have ADHD, how's your memory? Often they'll say, I've got the best memory in my family. I can remember stuff nobody else can remember. And they'll give you some example about some movie they saw 10 years ago, and they can tell you every detail of the entire storyline of the movie they saw once 10 years ago. I haven't seen it since. Or somebody else will say, yeah, I went to the Super Bowl 5 years ago. I can still describe for you almost every play they ran during that game. Or somebody else will say, I've got 450 songs in my head. All the music, all the lyrics, all the verses that were popular back in the 70s. But even though they might be very good about remembering some things like that from a long time ago, if you ask them about something that happened just a couple of minutes ago or yesterday, often they can't tell you. The problem with memory with ADHD is not with long-term storage memory, it's with short-term working memory. It's what you depend on when you go into the other room to get something and you're standing there scratching your head and wondering what in the world you came in here for. Or you're working on a project, you go downstairs, get something you need for the project, see something else that's interesting or something else that needs doing. Soon you're up to your elbows in project number 2, having totally forgotten you were in the middle of project number 1 upstairs. It was kind of important to get it done. Students complain they'll be in class. Teacher asks a question. They raise their hand. They've got a good answer for it. Teacher calls on somebody else first. You have to wait while this other kid says her shtick. Then the teacher comes back and says, yeah, what were you going to say? It's like totally clueless. Not only have I forgotten what I was going to say, but what was the question again? Or they'll read something, they understand it perfectly well at the moment that they read it. They read a few more pages, stop for a second, and realize their eyes have gone over every word, and they haven't got the foggiest idea of what they just read. Or, this really bothers them, they'll study for a test the night before the test. They'll go over it and quiz them, they've got it. They go into class the next day thinking they're going to get a good grade on this, and all of a sudden a big chunk of what they knew the night before has evaporated. Can't pull it out of their head when they need it, but then a few hours, a few days later, something jogs their memory, it's all back again. It's not that they didn't have it, it's they couldn't retrieve it when they needed it. Or you're getting ready to go someplace. You think of 5 things you need to take with you. Half an hour later, you're walking out the door, you got one of them. Can't remember the 4 to save your life. It's where you have to hold one thing in your mind while you're doing something else. That's the kind of memory problem that people with ADHD complain about. Another part of this is managing action. You know, it's certainly true that there are some people who, even as adults, are very restless and antsy. It's like they always have to have some part of them in motion. And there are some who are very quick to jump into things, even as adults. And certainly there are many kids who have this sort of thing. But the fact is, many people with ADHD have difficulty slowing down when they need to slow down and speeding up when they need to speed up. Often they have difficulty in monitoring their actions. They'll sometimes speak out of turn and not take into account what the effects are going to be of talking out and saying what they're saying, or they'll jump into something without thinking about what's going to happen if I do this. But all these things I'm talking about, the problems with memory, the problems with difficulty in controlling actions, the problems with regulating emotions, the problems with regulating alertness and sleep, the problems with being able to focus and shift focus when you need these, all these things constitute the range of difficulties that people with ADHD complain about. And remember, all of these are things everybody has trouble with sometimes. It's just that people with ADD have a lot more trouble with them. So the question is not does it ever happen, but how much does it happen? How much does it interfere with the person's being able to do the things they have to do in their daily life? Now, how does it happen? Why is it that some people have this so much more difficulty with these things than other people do? The evidence shows that it seems to be mostly inherited. Out of every 4 people diagnosed with ADHD, one of them has a mom or dad who's got it, whether they know it or not. They never used to diagnose this very well, and even today it gets missed a lot. The other 3, if they don't have a parent who has it, usually they have a grandparent or an uncle or an aunt or a cousin or brother or sister. One of their relatives will have it, although often it's not recognized. There are some people who have this where you can see it from early childhood. There's some others where you don't see it much in the early years of their schooling, but then when they begin to move into middle school and they don't have that one teacher who can help to keep things organized for them, now all of a sudden they've got to keep track of what's going on in several different classes and homework for different courses and moving around from one class to another. They have a lot more difficulty managing it. There's some whose parents are so effective in building a scaffolding around them that you don't even see the problem until they get up into high school where the parents are not that much aware of what they need to do, or they may move out of the house and move off to college or get involved in some work where the parents can't help them, and you begin to see then that they have a lot of trouble organizing themselves and doing what they need to do. So we don't always see this in early childhood. Sometimes it doesn't really appear until adolescence or early adulthood. But the fact is that those are usually the hardest times, I would say probably for most. Middle school, high school, first couple of years of college or going out in the work world, those are the times when most people with ADHD have the most difficulty with it, because those are the times when you have the widest range of tasks you have to do with the least opportunity to escape from the ones you're not that good at. If you're lucky, as you move on, you can focus more on the things you're good at and let somebody else do the other stuff that you're not that good at. And some people function quite well that way. But the fact is, these are problems that can cause a lot of difficulty, not just in school, but in the way people get along with other members of their family, the way people manage their social relationships, and the way they manage their jobs. And what we need to do is to be able to design a way of helping them to work with their strengths and working around their difficulties.